Welcome everyone to episode 14 of our Tabletop Assault podcasts, and today we have a full house for a change. So we are joined by myself, your host, David, and we have Stuart, Ross and Rob. Say hello, gentlemen. And today I just want to put in advance, our chat box on the side of the stream may not be working properly today. There was a few updates on our streaming software, so apologise in advance. However, there will be the YouTube chat box on the side. Feel free throughout the podcast to put any questions, comments, whatever you like, and I'm sure Ross will be keeping a very good close eye on that for us all. Again, simple rules, any comments or anything, keep it PC. And we're going to have a nice sort of take it off the tabletop chat today, but still Games Workshop-y themed. But today we're going to move into the sort of realm of video games and media entertainment. That's going to be our main topic of discussion. Again, centred around Games Workshop sort of products, but we might sprinkle in a few sort of different ones. Now, I'd like to thank on the podcast today, everyone that I'm joined with. We've all been through different generations of the Games Workshop video game franchise and media. Obviously, I think we all play different types of games as well, which is why this could be quite a good dynamic discussion to have. But first and foremost, I've got a really quick question for everyone, and don't go into too much detail. But in the top of your head, go around the table and tell me, what is your favourite Games Workshop video game to date that you've played? Stuart, I'm going to lead with you. Okay. So Space Marine, alright, and again we'll come to why maybe later on, but so Space Marine. Ross, what about yourself? Oh, sorry guys, 2 seconds. I think we're having a slight audio issue here. Give us a wee second, guys. We'll be back in a wee second for everyone. 2 seconds.
Okay then.
Alright, now we need to speak. So, Stuart,
Speak.
sing Poker Face. Don't.
Poker face. I was gonna go down and root it. Alright.
Okay, I think we've got the audio problems fixed. That's what happens when you update your software and you don't check every asset of it. Guys, in the chat, can you let me know if you can hear the gentleman I'm joined with today? So Stuart, Ross and Rob, say hello again.
Hello again.
Hello again.
Oh, hello.
Wow, thanks for the awkward pause, guys. That was absolutely great.
Oh, we didn't. You should have said
Yeah.
someone go first because we didn't know.
Yeah, we were trying to do rock, scissors, paper, but there's no camera on.
Yeah, it's a test, and when we don't know, we could have all tried to say it at the same time, and it would be a mismatch.
Perfect, excellent. So, for those who just heard me drumble on to myself in silence and sounding like I was just talking to ghosts, that's my normal Thursday night. So you just had a wee insight into my life there, guys. Right, let's go back on to the topic of choice. We were talking about video games, Games Workshop, all that lovely franchise. And I'd asked everyone what was their favourite game. Again, don't go into details, but Stuart, quickly fire off what was your favourite game again for his buddy.
My favourite game that I usually go back to play just to kill some stress is probably Space Marine. It's still one of my favourites to play. It's just an all-round really good game.
Okay, happy days. Ross, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to sort of the old school games, I really have to say Dawn of War 1, for its time, is just weaponized nostalgia for me. It is... I just remember playing that game endlessly, and it was so good. But looking at the modern time ones, it's definitely got to be the Total War, Warhammer ones. They are just fantastic. I didn't think they could bring together, strategy games so much and Total War and its complexes, including base management, monetary, economics, and also warfare. But they've done it so well, and they brought the characters into it. Which
Okay,
I
Ross,
feel...
I'm going to cut you
Yep,
off.
okay. Sorry, my bad. Yep.
It's alright, it's fine. It's just the way you are. You like to give all your explanations, but we'll come to it because we're probably going to dive a bit deeper into that sort of franchise.
Okay.
Rob, what about yourself, buddy?
Well, you guys are just young whippersnappers, aren't you? I'm,
Sure are. We absolutely are.
yeah, well, I'm going way back, and I haven't played it in many, many years, but it's two games were absolutely classic and kept me going in GW. First one is original Space Crusade on Atari/Amiga, which was basically an isometric projection style game, turn-based, basically playing Space Crusade. But the other one was Epic Armageddon. Now, if you're as old as me, you'll remember Epic Armageddon. And it was basically playing Epic turn-based on the PC. And it was fantastic.
I won't lie. The Space Crusade game you just mentioned there, I'll probably have to go into the cellar archives and dust off some books. I've never heard of that in my life.
You haven't heard of Space Crusade on the PC?
No. However, I have heard of Epic Armageddon. I've actually had the luxury of playing it. It's a beautiful game. Okay, perfect. I'll give mine really quickly, and I was going to say Dawn of War, but Ross has forever ruined that game for me. Which we will come on to.
Hi, my name's Ross.
But I can see in the chat a few have mentioned the game already. I know, Duke, you've mentioned it because I think maybe you know me way too well. Final Liberation is definitely my favourite Games Workshop game ever played. Which is the Epic
Epic game, which is what I meant anyway, which was the Epic Armageddon Epic Liberation.
It's perfect game. I think it was the first game I ever got with my PC back when the PC looked like it was a cream box of Doom with a silver screen in the front of it. Okay, excellent. Fair enough. I'm not going to ask the same question around entertainment and media because there's so much out there, and there's also some horrible failures which we'll come on to, which I know I'll get trolled for, but we'll come on to that. So, focusing on video games, I think we've seen a massive resurgence in Games Workshop branded video games more than ever. I think we're seeing them coming out weekly rather than yearly. I think Games Workshop video games back in my day was sort of a rarity, and it stemmed from really two genres: first person shooters, some thinking of Tau Fire Warrior, and then strategy games, some thinking of Dawn of War. But now it seems to be everywhere. Card games, you've got, I think people just said there, Vermintide. Games are all over the place. So essentially Games Workshop seem to be licensing their brand out to as many companies as they possibly can. And really, first main topic on this is this potentially a healthy thing for Games Workshop? Are they winning by licensing themselves out to all these different companies that can produce the games? Or is it maybe they're spreading their net far too far and wide? Ross, I want to start with you, if you have any thoughts or opinions on the matter.
Well, it's interesting when you're saying spreading their net far and wide. There's one that none of us mentioned. I don't think any of us mentioned any mobile games.
Yes.
As such, but let's not deny they have put out many, many contracts to mobile games. And at the end of the day, I've got no problem with companies doing that as such because it is a growing market and there's different areas. The one thing I'd say is that there is mobile games with quality behind them, which do work for players that want it. But I'd say when it comes to the mobile ones, the quality isn't there. And that kind of, to me, hurts the IP a wee bit in comparison to the PC side, where they seem to be really making a good effort. The only one that they did trip up on is, of course, Dawn of War 3. But when it comes to PC, mainly pretty good. So I think there is some good titles there. You had Gothic...
Battlefront Gothic, yeah.
Battlefront Gothic, which was one side. You've got your Total Wars Warhammer, which are fantastic. There's Vermintide mentioned, there's been loads of different ones. And I'd say the majority on the PC have been successes, but the mobile, I'd say the majority haven't really.
It's interesting you say mobile, because it's actually a gaming marketplace where I don't look to for Games Workshop games. Maybe I should look at it, but it's a good point. I don't think it's maybe been as big a success as it could have been, hence why it's maybe not in everyone's forefront when they think of Games Workshop games. Fair point. Rob, what about yourself? Any thoughts on what we're talking about in it?
I think that yes, that I can see what GW are doing, and it is good. To spread the word of GW and each of their universes far and wide. So it is good. It is definitely good. But is it too much? Are they trying to throw it in people's faces too much itself? I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you don't have the ability or the finances to do GW on the tabletop, not everybody does, but you love the lore and you love the concept of it. It gives you a good start into the hobby itself.
I think that's a really good question in itself. You may have just raised there.
Aha.
Should the games mimic quite closely to how the game is played on tabletop? Because I know there are a few out there that do that, and then there's a few that completely don't.
Well, you're stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Do you do that, and then you remove the temptation to play it on the tabletop, or does it actually influence people to go, you know what, you can actually do it yourself on the tabletop? So you've got two sides of it. Sometimes it'll actually prevent people doing it. Sometimes it will go, you know what, let's go ahead and actually push it onto the tabletop itself. So it's swings and roundabouts on it.
All right, thank you, Rob. Good points. And Stuart, I think you've definitely been in and out of the gaming franchise Games Workshop for quite a while. You're constantly badgering me to play Last Stand. So what's your thoughts on the topic?
I mean, Games Workshop, I think it's healthy, but I mean, I think for a while, I don't think they threw a lot of money at years and years and years ago, and it wasn't like very prevalent because of like computers and stuff. But like, they did have like I think a moment where they were just throwing their money at everybody and seeing what sticks. And I think there was like a game, and I think they were trying to go down a route of like kind of like Battlefield, but like that kind of area, and you're playing Space Marine. I remember it was on Steam, but I think it's gone now.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Yeah, like I've all like if you look back on like on Games Workshop's like games, like they really have a game for every genre. I don't think there's one besides like maybe like Dark Souls or something. I think you could probably get a Games Workshop game on a genre that you like. But right now, I think they're coming in the way of actually doing some good with the games now. Because I mean, what like Vermintide 2, you've got like the Space Marine game, Total War, and there's that's terrible. The new one that's coming out as well for the new generation of consoles as well that they're bringing out for the Imperial. You're playing the Imperial Guard.
Darktide.
Yeah, because it seems like they're really kind of sticking towards the whole kind of Left 4 Dead kind of genre sort of thing, like 4-man groups running around killing zombies and things. But I mean, I don't think it really harms them. I think it does good for them. It does, like Rob said, it's a good introduction to people who don't know too much on it and like the lore and all that. They can either go into the tabletop,
Agreed.
or even if they don't, it's still a market that they're in that people will buy their product of Games Workshop. They just don't need to play the tabletop to do anything with it.
Yeah, okay, all good points. Give my 10 pence for what it's worth, although most you've already kind of covered my viewpoints, which one clearly is a really good way to bring people into the hobby. But with the question at hand about spreading the net too far and wide, I will actually admit I'm quite nervous of how much Games Workshop has licensed their product out in such high regards to all these sort of game developers. The reason I'm concerned is I actually think there's so much. If you probably looked really deep dive into what Games Workshop games are out there, there's probably a much bigger catalogue than you first thought there would be, and it's probably quite surprising to see how many is out there. And I'm always a believer of your brand is the most important thing to protect as a business. Your brand is the most important thing to protect, and if someone is potentially doing something with the brand which is not up to par or up to the standards of that brand, it shouldn't exist. However, though, you spread the net far and wide enough. I know one of you mentioned the phrase, you throw enough at something, it will stick. That is also true. It certainly probably increased the visibility of Games Workshop as a brand more than ever. The fact that they've got so many successful games out there. Couple that with... so I would say maybe the gaming industry is probably on the rise in particular. Interesting enough, they've got two sort of genres. You've got the 40k-esque genre, which is all your gunning, your space marines, Necromunda I've seen in the chat, it's been mentioned a few times. And then you've got your fantasy element, and two are very, very contrasting genres. And I think if in my personal opinion, you had the Dawn of War franchise, which I think was super successful, although I thought 3 was a mitigated disaster. Gameplay wise it was fun, but as a game it didn't have enough. But then I think Ross, you mentioned the Total War. If you look at the Total War franchise, how much of an amazing success has that actually been for Games Workshop? It has to be probably, if not their most successful, one of the most successful franchises. But Ross, what do you think's made the Total War Games Workshop games so successful?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's literally what I was just about to ask. So
I was saving it for you, buddy.
So you can look at between the comparison of Dawn of War versus the Total War things, and there's mechanics in them that are different. But what makes them differently enjoyable is that the Total War side tried to make each faction feel incredibly individual, and have a very, very gorgeous looking world to move and play the economy side on. Each of the lords had bonuses and everything. Dawn of War, yeah, there was difference between the forces, but largely it was just the same with a different skin and a couple of different abilities. Total War, the difference, and you'll find a faction that you enjoy playing because the characters are cool, their missions are cool, the units are very individual, and how you raise the economy is very different to another one. Just that different aspect of playing different factions really holds up well. If they didn't do that, making each faction feel individual, I think it would have been a disaster. But by nailing that, and then they progressively try and improve it, it really worked out in its favour.
Good points, yeah. I fully agree. There was so much to that game franchise, just so much to it, and then you arguably have to look at the other coin. You mentioned Dawn of War. You take Dawn of War 3, which had such a hype, such a potential, but it didn't really have much to it. There wasn't clearly enough investment or enough put behind the game to make you want to play. There's only so much of gameplay. I think Warhammer Total War has just got all the lore in the world, all the beauty in the world, it's just such a well designed game. And unfortunately
So I was going to say, but also you got to think of the game mechanics.
Yeah, definitely.
So you look at the game, how Total War is as a game mechanic in its entity. So not just GW Total War, but all the other Shogun, I can't remember any others, Rome Total War, for instance, and the physical game mechanics of that, and then put it to this type of hobby and franchise, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I'm spying the chat, and apologies, DJ or Duke, sorry, I should say, you've just had given a massive spoiler to my next question, which I'd rather you didn't have done, but fair enough, you didn't know. And this is what I was going to say for Stuart, which was the future of the Games Workshop sort of gaming industry. Should it be looking to muscle into the esports world, with esports being such a rise? And I think no one can deny lockdown in particular has been a humongous increase to the exposure of esports. There's probably a bigger audience than there's ever been before. And Games Workshop certainly has its foot in all the genres that esports is there. Should they be looking to muscle in with it with their brand power? Stuart, thoughts?
Well, if you look at their track record, because I was thinking that is like a lot of things that come out, like even games, like after a game's successful, like Games Workshop suddenly a game comes out from. I think they will go down the esports area, maybe. I mean, I don't even know what you would do, what you could play, what you would use. Like you've got
exactly. That was my question to you: is if they go into the esports, what game would they actually use?
Yeah,
I can think of two right off the top of my head. And that's
So-
only because I'm a bit of an esports nerd, but number one would have to be Blood Bowl.
Yeah, Blood Bowl.
I think Blood Bowl's a really good game, works tabletop and on the esports
Dawn
side
of-
of things.
There you go, Dawn of War. Like Dawn of War 3, they were basically trying to make that sort of an esports-ish kind of game in a way.
I mean, if you set it up as a good game like StarCraft, if it's that sort of style, then yes, you can do that as esports because there's characters like Scarlet. I can't remember what the other guy's name is.
Don't worry about it.
on
It's,
there.
yeah, it definitely. But I think Dawn of War 3 was trying to mimic the StarCraft model. The gameplay and feel of the game it felt incredibly close to StarCraft.
That could have been either their foot in the door for it because how big StarCraft is as an esport. I think that might have been them trying to maybe get their foot in the door and see what would happen, but it's not gone their way. But I don't know.
Yeah.
They've been going down more, giving their license out to more like cooperative play at the moment. So unless I don't know.
I did say there was 2 games. I just want to go back to my point. I did say there was 2 games because this might surprise some of you around the table. Dawn of War, you would assume would have been the natural choice of the next game to say, but I look at the Dawn of War franchise and I look at it as the game they currently have that would lead into esports, which would probably have to be their best looking. Dawn of War 3 isn't up to par for an esports. There's not enough to it, not enough factions. Yeah. Although I guess StarCraft only has 3 factions, but it clearly has a head start in the industry. The other game for me would be, it's a pretty easy one, would be Underworlds. And the reason you would look at Underworlds is to try and get into that, well, not even Necromunda, but the card game esports. The Hearthstone, the Magic the Gathering.
They do have that. They do have a Hearthstone kind of game. And
I've seen that, yeah.
Aye.
But Underworlds has a bit more to it with that sort of... We both played Underworlds. You could see that potentially translating into esports. I could be wrong. I just felt those 2 games might be the ones you would try and put your weight behind as a company to push for esports.
Because it's sort of like a Call of Duty-esque style, really, isn't it?
No, Underworlds is very much an element of... It's like the board game. So you've got wee kill teams which are moving around, but you have a deck of cards. And those deck of cards will play a heavy influence into the game. If you wanted to go down Call of Duty esports, then really the only one you've kind of got there would be Space Marine or Eternal Crusade, I guess. Would be your options for that.
Yeah, because they were trying to do that, like go down the Battlefield route with that one.
Eternal Crusade is what you're thinking then, yeah.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking.
Well, guys, I'm conscious of time. I do want to slightly move on, but what I will say is I'm going to end this wee chat on games because we've got a whole section of media to come on, and that's just in itself. But Ross, you're happy for me to share this. I did say in the start Ross did ruin Dawn of War for me, and I did promise I was going to give a bit of context. Ross beat me at Dawn of War a long time ago when I was quite heavily and competitive into Dawn of War, and he will never give me a rematch.
How many years has it roughly been?
Too many.
As in the double digits.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's a grudge I'm going to be keeping for a long time until I get that rematch. I will.
What was your rank, David, in that?
I can't remember my rank, but I remember when I was doing the tag team tournaments, we were something like 260 wins to about something like 31 defeats. It was quite successful. We played with a couple of German and Polish guys, but regardless, Ross came along and beat me. Now, do I have any excuses? Of course. My hands weren't working properly. I was blinded that day. There was a lot of excuses and circumstances.
I wasn't using a mouse.
No, I was using the power of my mind, but it didn't quite work. But guys, what Ross will eventually give me that rematch, and I'd highly advocate in the comment section. In fact, you know what? Give this video a like if I deserve a rematch. There you go.
So I'm going to make my plea here. I have spent nearly 15 years holding this over David's head and taunting with him, and the pain is delicious. You've seen how many times I lose to him on some of the battle reports. This has been 15 years of holding this rematch over him, and he better make it worth it. So, you can demand in comments all you want, but the torture of David over just a simple game of Dawn of War 1 is delightful.
If this turns into like a boxing match where you get knocked out in the first round, I will be very disappointed.
Well, also, David, you're now, and probably still even then, vastly better than me in Dawn of War. So it'd just be punishing. No, I'm sticking to my last victory and hanging up the belt.
Put it this way, I have thought in my head multiple strategies to try and embarrass you in Dawn of War, and you'll not give me the option. So it's haunting my dreams. It is haunting my dreams.
You're just making us even better.
I know. But one day I'll need to come to the realization it's not going to happen. But I digress. We'll move on. But I did promise to share why Dawn of War is ruined for me as a game. There you go. Now you know why. All right. So the next section, and I guess this again is going to be down to personal preference. TV shows and media. There's obviously been a lot of chat about Games Workshop in particular at the moment with all the new sort of animation shows that they're planning to bring out. We kind of lightly touched on that in one of our previous podcasts. There's a lot of new developers coming on, a lot of new studios coming on with some great exciting projects. Some people are excited about, some not so much. But this isn't new to Games Workshop. They've been involved in this industry for actually quite some time, going as far back as the 90s, where I can't remember the title of it. Duke will probably put it up in the chat at some point. But back in the whole 90s, you had an infamous Gene Stealer, and I think it was a Deathwing Dark Angel media video that was first launched on Games Day, I believe, is where it was first launched. And that was infamously hilarious. Probably what they thought was great at the time in the 90s, but it was pretty bad. And then you move on to the next sort of regeneration of media, which was obviously the Ultramarines movie, which the less said about that, the better. It's true. It's absolutely true. And then nowadays you see this massive resurgence to gather as many studios as they possibly can. And Duke has put it in the chat, the Inquisitor fan film. There you go. Yes, I'm sure that was launched on a Games Day event, and enough was said. But they're bringing all these new studios in and really helping to push that media concept. Animations like cartoons. Maybe there's going to be live action in the future. But I wanted to just ask around the table, is this something that you think GW is doing well? You know, this looks like exciting times for the media ahead. Stuart, have you seen any sort of noise or anything like that? Do you think it's good going forward? I know you're quite outspoken of companies that do great CGI, and why don't they use that in-house CGI sometimes to make their films? I know you say that about Blizzard quite a lot. But what's your thoughts on GW?
I would really like to get a good movie out of them, or a good. I mean, they done what? No, that was Warcraft. Sorry, I'm getting that mixed up there. But I mean, I would really like a good TV series or something, because there's I still forgot his name. The guy who on YouTube who got wildly famous for his CGI work done himself. I mean,
Astartes.
Astartes. That was amazing. Like, and I think we heard that he's with Games Workshop now.
So I wouldn't say he's with Games Workshop, but his project to continue Astartes is now being backed up by Games Workshop. So yeah,
that's exciting. I'm really excited for that to go ahead, like to have a full TV series of that and things. I mean, I've always wanted like a really good movie out of them, but they've just never. I don't even think they've just really thrown enough money at it to really do much with it, really.
Well, I don't know. Rob, I'm sure you're obviously you keep up to date with a lot of GW stuff, like not just tabletop wise, but I think the company's being incredibly profitable in the last few years. Probably more now than ever, yeah.
Yeah, they really have. I mean, if you look at all the, they're doing really well on the preview weekends. So when they're doing the community preview day on Twitch, etc.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah, they are raking so much hype on stuff that's coming up, which is entailing and sort of building up to them hitting the pre-orders really, really hard, hitting the games like Curse City when it comes out really, really hard. The hype is there. So we, in relation to TV, etc., is when the Warhammer animation sets up, that will be absolutely massive. I mean, the anime videos which they are showing or previewing is just next level, and that will really, really push GW to a different area of the business.
So here's a quick point on that. You're talking about the previews, and I think that's actually a good point to raise. I'm sure, Rob, you did watch it. I know some of us here on the channel watched it. Me and Ross did a reaction to it. When Warhammer 9th edition was launched, does anyone remember, obviously, that launch animation, which was Adeptus Sororitas, the Necrons, the Space Marines? That was some really good quality animation, but that was clearly developed in-house. But Games Workshop seems to be focusing more at the moment on bringing in a lot of YouTube studios. So it's quite interesting why they're maybe going down that route. They don't maybe have the same infrastructure as these studios have, or maybe they just feel it's a good way because they bring a lot of fans with them. If you bring Astartes in, it brings all the fans from Astartes in as well.
It's not just that, is if you've got somebody who is good at what they're doing and they've got a network for what they do, then why change something or sit there trying to develop something when it's already there?
Yeah, very much.
You've already got somebody who's really good at doing it. Let's utilize those and know it's going to be good. As you say, Astartes was absolutely phenomenal, and it's great that they're actually bringing them on board because, one, they've got a thirst for the hobby, and secondly, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think no one can doubt the professionalism of what was produced. It was incredible.
And again, I go back to, they've created a hype for the franchise. Plain and simple.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, well, I'm going to just quickly also, if you don't mind, move on to the same topic. But I just wanted to hear from Ross's point of view, because I'm not trying to call you out publicly here, Ross, but I think of all of us here on this podcast, you're probably, I'd say, more learned in the side of media than probably the rest of us are, just from a bit of your background. But I would say, you know, do you like what they're going this route, bringing in these sort of YouTube studios? Do you think animation's the right route? Or do you feel it's an area of Games Workshop which hasn't worked well in the past and maybe they shouldn't pursue it?
So when it comes to the specifics of Games Workshop stuff, I don't know theirs entirely, like what they're planning to do, not in a huge amount of detail. But it's an area that many IPs, especially the fantasy area, fantasy or sci-fi, they are trying to get into. Look at Lord of the Rings with Amazon. You had The Witcher with Netflix. Many of these IPs recognize that TV is a huge growing trend. You know, some could argue more than cinema. It really depends. Certainly with the stuff going on, it could really be argued that. And so trying to get a dominance of eyes onto screens, and then when you see a story build on TV that's done well, it pulls you into other aspects. There's a huge amount of competition for it to be done well. As with working with smaller creators such as Astartes, I don't know any of the deal behind it or anything, but I'd imagine it gives them, Astartes, security to create the I presume there'll be a financial backing to them, and that'll give them security to create what they want. There may now be, you know, impositions onto their vision as creators. That often happens when, you know, companies then, you know, invest in legitimize other content creators. But overall, I think it'll give them security they need financially, hopefully, or at least a bit of security to then go further with it. As for everything else, again, I feel they are throwing a lot of things against the wall, see what sticks. It's very tricky to say how it'll work in terms of making the IP stronger. The IP does have a lot of its fan base, and that's the main ones to get it. Everyone wants to get the next Game of Thrones, and everyone's trying to find out what it'd be. Although 40k may be something very different, even fantasy, everyone's trying to find that next big sort of fantasy or sci-fi thing that captures the idea of the world. And Games Workshop's got to put their hat in the ring, see how they do with it. Even, you know, look at World of Warcraft. They tried theirs for years, and then when they realized the fantasy genre was growing, they then eventually got that film out. Now, did it do well or not is debatable, but it's just everyone has realized the value of having these mediums and of their IP fully to use them. So I think it's a great thing they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it entirely because I've not looked into it, but it can only be hopefully a good thing.
So I love that. That was excellent. Good points there. I'm going to quickly chime in with a backstory on the sort of media itself, as in their history of Ultramarines movie, very, very quickly. But then I want to raise a quick point, which I think is incredibly worth mentioning when it comes to Games Workshop's brand in the media world. So first and foremost, I just want to say I'm actually glad they're doing the YouTube stuff. They're bringing these channels in because I have to explain how scunnered I was with the Ultramarines movie. I even bought the special edition with the comic, the steelbox, and yes, I'm going to get called out for hating Ultramarines, but yeah, I bought the film. I bought it thinking it was going to be a great collectible item that will go down, and no, it's just losing probably value every second of every day, because it's a terrible film with a great voice cast. Just a
I was
terrible.
about to say, has John Hurt in it? Fantastic actor.
It does. It's got some great voice actors, but just a really badly executed film, and it made sort of no real sense to me to produce it. Not for the budget they probably spent or the time they spent. So because of that, I've always been incredibly nervous whenever Games Workshop realm into the world of movies or TV shows. Obviously, they've demonstrated a great pedigree for trailers in games and sort of movie aspects or cutscenes in games. I know Mark of Chaos, the fantasy game, had some phenomenal CGI.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
The very start of it was fantastic.
And again, even go further back, Final Liberation, when they had their sort of was it motion capture videos, very much like Command and Conquer style. But again, good track record, worked really, really well. But I'm glad that they're obviously maybe understanding that their own in-house vision maybe needs to bring some outside influence, like Astartes, like the guys who are doing Hell's Reach. That Tal one I've seen. This is great. Hopefully the collaborations work and hopefully it benefits both sides. But this brings me on to for me, what is the most important point about GW's expansion into the sort of media world. Games, you can kind of get away from it because games seem to be in a niche of their own, which is why I didn't really bring up for that. But movies tend to be judged and scrutinised at a bit of a harsher level. And that is the world of 40k. If you think about it, the grim dark, it's not a nice place. And it's not a place which, if you were to take the values of 40k, the social values, and put them into the world today, I could see people being quite up in arms about some of the content they potentially create to give a true representation of what is Games Workshop. So naturally that tells me that a lot of the content they produce will be very much dumbed down, very clean. You might not get a lot of blood, gore, and things that you would get from a lot of the YouTube fan-made stuff. As soon as it's translated into the world of Games Workshop, you'll find it'll be touched with a very sensitive PG brush. And it does concern me, because to me, I'm not in the hobby for that. I'm in the hobby because it does have this grim dark, this feeling to it, this emotion, which is what Games Workshop's all about. And then, to put around the table, Stuart, you first, do you feel that bringing these new shows in, one, do you think they will get that touch of PG? And should they get the touch of PG?
Yeah, they'll get the touch of PG because they'll want to get with the men. They want to get tons of people to be able to watch it, and if you R-rate it, or you're not going to hit that demographic of people. I mean, they will probably bring out some R-rated things for for people to watch, because like Game of Thrones and that was very popular and stuff. It can be done, but I think they would probably keep away from the lore that's very more adult, rather than for for anybody else. So yeah, I would say they'd probably go down more kind of the PG-13 route. They would do.
Makes sense. What about you, Ross? What's your thoughts on that? Oh, Ross, have we lost you? Okay, I think Ross's mic may have dropped, guys. So I'll pass it on to you, Rob. What's your thoughts?
I think they should do. They will do a split. I think they will start off with doing a PG rated series, PG rated films to get the fan base hungry for it, and then, like you said, is they'll start to bring in the R-rated elements, so Slanesh, demons, etc., later on, once they've got a foundation within the community itself to say, hey, look, guys, this is GW in film form.
Yeah.
There you go. Get your teeth into it. But then they'll just possibly go, okay, guys, for you older people, this is what it's really like, and take it that way. So they may do two elements to it.
Okay. Ross, do we have you back, buddy, as well?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. It's fine. Obviously, we were boring you, and you were done with us. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Rob, no, good points. I like the idea of maybe potentially, a sort of, and you kind of have that with the books, don't you? You've got the very child comic book friendly series that Games Workshop are doing with a lot of their stories, and then you've got the more traditionalist, I guess, Horus Heresy lore and things like that. Ross, I did want to put the question to you, give you your fair opportunity to answer it. The question really, again, just to repeat it, was the lore of 40k has its adult material. Let's not kid ourselves. And then when you bring in these YouTube studios to help work on these projects, Games Workshop, do you feel, would probably add the PG touch to them, as in dumb a lot of their content down? Because a lot of these YouTube videos, these fan-made ones, I know in particular some of the Deathcore of Krieg ones, some of the Horus Heresy ones, is quite bloody, quite gory. There's also potential social content on there which a lot of people may not agree with, and they wouldn't want that being brought into the realm of media. Keep it on the tabletop, keep it in video games. It's just, should these studios come in, will GW give them the PG touch? And if so, do you agree with giving them the PG touch?
So it's an interesting point there in terms of the social aspect. There is many parts of, it's an old IP that certain things in the past just won't fly so much today. And I won't go into specific examples, but there's one that always makes me laugh, which was the name of Gazgul Thraka is named after a certain British Prime Minister.
Yes.
And, that's just a joke that's kind of doesn't play. We get it, but it doesn't play off today. One of the most major orc characters is named after that. And sort of, I think we've seen a big shift in the tone as well when 8th edition came in. And I think it's just, the IP has been old for a while, and they've changed stuff and they've moved stuff around, and the tone they want to create. I think the tone they've now wanted to push, certainly in 8th and 9th, is the tone going forwards. And it's a lot more friendlier. Sometimes there was some horrific stuff that happened in the past that Codex has mentioned. What they put out now is both very, very harsh, but also not as deeply, horrifying as it could be. Now, they'll probably bring out some PG stuff. They've done that with, with these books that are obviously aimed towards the kids area of 40k, where they're being chased by Necron and they have to use stuff to get away from them, very Doctor Who-ish. But when there will be aspects, they know that the main core audience is those looking for warfare, and warfare is brutal, especially in a sci-fi environment with horrible aliens as well. They're looking to do horrible things to other aliens in the existence. So they do have to bring out very, very, graphic war ones, because that is what we play on a daily basis. Same Dawn of War and everything, it's blood and guts everywhere. But there will be ones that are PG rated. There will be ones opening up to other people. People have kids they want to bring into the hobby, and they want to say, there's a TV show you might enjoy. There are certainly TV shows you cannot enjoy because they are just too brutal.
Interesting. Good points. No, it's fair enough. I think I want to quickly reverse there. You mentioned that Doctor Who-esque comics. I believe their audiobooks for that series is narrated by Billy Piper and David Tennant.
No, really? Okay.
So I just thought it was quite ironic you made that reference, and I wonder if, there's probably some influence there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here's the honest opinion I have, and it just comes mainly as a content creator. I actually believe GW will do a PG touch on them, and rightfully so, because we're in a modern world and a lot of the stuff will not fly anymore. But I just hope that it doesn't take away from the creativity of these sort of YouTube channels, which are giving you true, sort of, in their opinion, a true return of what the Grimdark universe is. Astartes, let's not kid ourselves. I'm sure everyone here is listening to this podcast will have seen the Astartes franchise. I think the final episode is brutal. Let's not kid ourselves. They get absorbed. There's a whole. I'm probably giving away spoilers. I'm not going to put a spoiler warning. If you've not seen it, it's your own fault. There's a guy arm gets taken off. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. Very gruesome, but it makes sense. And I guess that's maybe because I'm indoctrinated by GW in the lore, but it made perfect sense to me, and I would hope that doesn't get taken away. But I'd imagine it probably will for the PG audience to make sure it can be released. Okay, I'll just finish off by saying I think it's exciting times on the gaming front. and very exciting times on the media front on both avenues. There's obviously been some track record of some poor games, some track record of poor movies and poor TV shows, but the teams they brought in for the media side looks great, bringing all these YouTube channels in to give their opinion. And the games, well, I think we've seen a really good flurry of games. I think some people mentioned Inquisitor Martyr in the chat. Absolutely great game for your Diablo-esque players. Underworlds for your card players. Dawn of War, Total War. Total War's been a huge success. So let's just hope it continues, but hopefully they start, rather than giving the IP out to everyone, it needs to then rein back in. You're just left with just what is success in a game franchise that you enjoy and a media franchise you enjoy. I also will say, for those who are listening to either live or the replay, please put in the comment section below if you would like us here on Tabletop Assault to do a react to the Inquisitor fan-made film. Duke suggested it, so he will be credited for it, but I have seen it several times, and I think every time I watch it I do get a sore pain in my side. But it is one hell of a fan-made film to watch if you haven't seen it. Has everyone in here on this podcast seen it? Or not seen what I'm talking about at all? No, honestly.
I think I have, so it'd be my first reaction, really.
Excellent. So I think that might be then something. Well, guys, if you want it to happen, please put it in the comments, because I'll happily watch it again with the 999 dialed on my phone ready to go. And I'd love to see these three enjoy it and watch it too. So we'll make sure that's a thing. Obviously, I'd say it's probably going to have to happen when lockdown's lifted, because you want to get that reaction when we're all there together. It has to be honest. It can't be faked behind a Zoom call. Definitely not. Because I know for everyone they'll keel over and either laugh or keel over and be angry. Alright, okay, well, moving on. We've got our sort of final section for the day. We've only got a few minutes left. We have kind of gone on a bit longer than we probably thought, so sorry about that. But just going to talk about some of the updates in the hobby, and this one is relevant to our topic of discussion today. So there was a huge announcement, maybe to some people, not so much other people, but you had Hired Gun from Necromunda announced. Has everyone had the opportunity, first of all, to see these trailers floating around Facebook and YouTube?
I haven't.
No, I haven't, no.
So you've seen it, Rob? Good. Stuart, that astounds me you've not seen it, because this game looks like it's you to a T. And especially with you being a big fan of the Deathwing games, it's getting made, I believe, by the same studio or collaborated with the guys who made Deathwing. Hired Gun is basically a fast-paced, very much like they're taking the idea of Doom but putting it into the Necromunda universe.
Interesting. Another genre they're falling into, sort of thing.
It looks, but what I would say is, after this podcast, Stuart, please make sure you have a chance to go watch it, and the same goes to you, Ross. Ross, I don't know if first-person fast-paced shooters are your kind of thing.
Nope.
Okay, well, there's a very quick one there. Rob, what about yourself?
I love watching them, but my coordination itself, due to my hands and all that, isn't great. I get frustrated very, very quickly. I've tried other first-person games, and MMORPGs, and people are going to hate it. I have tried them. I can't do it. It's just a coordination for myself. I just can't play them. I love watching them.
Hey, that's fine.
I just can't play it.
I'm the same. I can't play Fortnite because I'm allergic to it. But it's just...
My son would rip you apart, mate.
Oh, I'm sure he would. I don't understand Fortnite. To me, it looks like a cross between Rust without the toxicity, but that's the beauty of Rust. And then adding Call of Duty first-person shooting, or third-person shooting, I guess it actually is. It just confuses me. All the colours throw me off, Rob. I don't like colourful things. I like grey and dark things. Yeah, it says a lot about me.
Yeah. My son Mason itself, he's 12 and he's very, very good at Fortnite. I just watch him and go, how can you play it? I just don't have the coordination at all for it.
See, things like that make me wish, that I did have a child and just raised them on Dawn of War and Total War every day, and I could create a supercomputer player for Total War and Dawn of War. But yeah, it's amazing. Kids will envelop the games really, really quickly.
David, you just remind me of the meme of like Malcolm in the Middle, where the youngest one just stands over his dad and goes, "The future is now, old man."
What are you trying to say?
Well, as David says, I wish I had a kid to teach him about all the old things and deny all the new.
Do you know what the problem is? Actually, if I did have a kid, right, and taught the kid how to play really well at Dawn of War, I would just have another person that beats me and hold it over my head. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, it's not going to happen. Not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Hired Gun, guys, back to the topic at hand. Hired Gun got announced, and it looks really exciting. Very much taking that sort of fast-paced Doom game. It looks incredibly colourful, but Necromunda seems to be getting a lot of love at the moment in the virtual world. Not so much the tabletop world, they're getting teams added all the time. But I think this is the second Necromunda game now in about a couple of years. Because I think you had the turn-based one, and now you've got this first-person shooter one. So exciting times. I'm just sorry that you guys haven't seen the trailer, but please make sure you go and watch it after the podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely a good one. Other updates. Obviously, there was, in my opinion, I'm not going to go over the weekend preview of Faith and Damnation because that has came and gone now. But obviously, we had a lot of Age of Sigmar updates in my opinion in the last few weeks. We've had tons on the Lumineth forces. With obviously you've got the new, is it the Rob, you may need to correct me this, I think you're more in Age of Sigmar. Is it Huracan?
Yeah.
Huracan?
Yes, Hurricane.
So you've had the Huracan Cavalry, which to me just looks like a really cheap rip-off of the Illyrian Reavers, but you know, cavalry archers is a thing. So you've had those guys announced, and then obviously, I don't know if I'm right or wrong in this, but is there something happening between Nagash and the Lumineth Elves?
Yes, pretty much with Teclis going, "Oi, you, come here. What you doing? You're messing up my big plans, etc." And Nagash being Nagash going, "Bring it on, sunshine." So basically, it's Teclis being his pansy elven self and not liking what Nagash is doing, therefore stepping on his toes and trying to stop it.
Ross, were you about to chime in there, sorry?
No, not really, but what I'd say is it seems that Nagash, I don't know much in Age of Sigmar stuff, but it seems like Nagash just annoys everyone in turn.
He does.
And they all come after him. It's like usually you'd expect it to be chaos, Archeon doing something. Now it's Nagash who's just going round everyone and annoying them, then does something, and they all have a turn.
Yep, but if you think about it as well, and I'm a big undead player myself, and have been for many a year, and I want to get back into it, is even Nagash's own minions don't, a lot of them do not like him. He's very much, well, okay, you haven't got the souls that I want, therefore I'm going to punish her. And he's a very hard creature. I can't call him a man or a beast. A hard creature to actually make happy.
Well, I'd be unhappy too if I was the Lord of Death, you know.
He's a difficult lord to please.
He is, and and it's always the fun history of him between him and Sigma and the Stormcast, because if you don't know any of the background, is Nagash is really cheesed off because Sigma with Stormcast, that when they die, their essence goes back up to Stormcast heaven and that lot, and then they get reincarnated. And when their souls get sent up to back up to Sigma, Nagash doesn't get them. Therefore,
he doesn't get his payment.
Exactly. So he doesn't get his payment for people dying. Therefore, he's really cheesed off, and that's why there's such a animosity between himself and Sigma, because he's not getting his dues.
Well,
I have a joke for this, but I think like it's a legal one in terms of two big major companies that one of them's not getting their cash at the moment. They've both gone to court. Don't know if I can mention that one. I don't know if you know what I'm planning to.
I'm going to say it, just say it.
All right, it's a bit like Fortnite not wanting to pay Apple.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so that's all going through the courts at the moment and having fun with that.
Yeah, that's probably definitely not our podcast topic discussions for tonight. But yeah, it's definitely a perfect reference. I like it. All right, okay. And then there was one final update as well that I wanted to touch on. So that's your Age of Sigmar. You had the new Luminous stuff updated, and then you also had their sort of ongoing, looks like campaign possibly to come against Nagash. But you also had a wee update for Adeptus Mechanicus, which is a game we don't have on the channel, but I know, Rob, in particular, you've mentioned that you're looking at it, and I've mentioned to you I'm looking at it as well. But it was Adeptus Titanicus, and I think the community's been asking, from what I can see on social media over the last wee while, about when were Volkite weaponry due to be sort of introduced to the Adeptus Titanicus range.
Look what happened today.
Yes, so today you had Titanicus Engine Kill. You basically had a range of new Volkite weaponry added to the, I believe it was the Warhound, Reaver, and Warlord Titans. Can now start to use Volkite weaponry. Now I won't go into any of the details because I don't profess to play the game. I'm hopefully maybe at one point try and learn it. But for those who are Adeptus Titanicus players listening to the podcast and haven't got your fill, you need to check this out. It looks like it's quite a rather big update. Some crazy new weaponry is coming to the model range. With it looks like a couple of unique sort of rules as well. But basically, Volkite weaponry has finally arrived in Adeptus Titanicus. That was the main sort of update. I believe there was also, it was hinted around they're here to destroy void shields.
Yes. What you hit something with a Volkite weaponry. Oh look, no more void shields.
Yeah, which
you're now up for pain from everything else.
Which to me sounds like when you're against knights or titans, it's a good thing. So yeah, that kind of wraps things up, guys, and we're going to try and finish off sharpish tonight. But yeah, it's been a good discussion around, obviously, the gaming industry, definitely around the media industry. For you guys who haven't seen it, please watch the Hired Gun trailer. I'm very intrigued to see what you think about it, Stuart, because you're a big Doom player, and this game feels like maybe something that you maybe look at in an interesting way.
I'll be playing the Doom soundtrack as I'm watching it.
You'll be playing the Dooms. I think it's got its own decent soundtrack, but fair enough. Why is the Doom soundtrack in my YouTube recommendations almost every day now?
Because
Everywhere I turn, it's just Doom. Everywhere I turn.
That good.
Okay, fair enough. I forget you're biased. Very biased. Well, let's just finish off. So, a week ahead, guys. Obviously, we're going to try and keep the podcast rolling as consistent as we can. Give you a wee update on what's ahead of my week for the channel. I'll be editing a whole ton of battle reports, as you sure know. Obviously, Rob's tournament series is underway, and I wanted to use the sort of final minutes of this podcast to recommend, if you haven't started watching it, we have Game 1 and Game 2 up live on the channel, with the remaining games of the first round to come in the next week to 2 weeks, along with some analysis videos as well on how they felt the battle reports went. But again, if you're into sort of a tournament style of play, because these games do matter, each win or each loss or each draw has an importance on the series ahead, please tune into that. I think you've got some more games coming up with that, Rob, don't you?
We do indeed. So what very, very quickly is it's a 1,000-point tournament, as it is, and you have to stick with your same army for the duration of the games. But what we're doing, not very much of a spoiler, but we are doing a 1,500-point series and a 2,000-point series. So you can keep with your army. You're only allowed to drop one character stroke one unit. And basically, it's like a path of glory for your chaos, your 40k army itself. See how it grows. Helps with people with painting, etc. And it's just an absolute giggle. It's taken seriously to a certain extent, but at the same time, we've got some absolute hilarity characters playing in it, and there are some absolute hilarity elements within the games itself. It's well worth watching.
Yep, definitely.
And I said we're going to start doing the next batch for the series very shortly when we can socially distance, etc.
Yep, obviously.
Yep. And yeah, we just get on there, watch it, and just enjoy it more than anything. It was great fun to do. Very tiring, but it was great fun to do.
Perfect. Well, guys, again, if you want a tournament play, please check out Rob's Round Robin Tournament. Again, Game 1 and 2 is live now as we speak, with future games to come. Final update before we just sign off for tonight. We also want to just shout out, or I personally want to shout out, one of the painters on the channel has launched a Twitch channel fairly recently. You may have seen some of the updates on our own Instagram page and also our own Facebook page. It's at Paints on a 5-Up. There is a Twitch channel now doing weekly episodes on Paints on a 5-Up. Very much paint and chat and chill. And we just want to recommend, if any of you are interested in that sort of content, please go subscribe, check out her channel. Paints on a 5-Up, as you will know, has painted some of our Necrons, our Death Guard. So obviously we also want to just have a wee shout out there. Please go and check that on. That's at Paints on a 5-Up, and the link will be in the description below. So guys, we're going to sign off sharpish. We usually run over. We're going to sign off sharpish tonight. From me, thank you very much. Guys, do you want to say your goodbyes, Stuart, Rob, and Ross?
See you.
Goodbye. Have a good weekend.
So I've been your host, David. We'll hopefully see you again on next week's podcast episode. But until then, check us out on the replay, which is up later on, if you've not had a chance to catch the live version. But we'll see another Tabletop Assault Battle Report.